Jess, I think you're on mute.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll be getting started in about 1 minute. Well, I think that we will get started. Good afternoon and welcome to our Mid-Atlantic Market Section 4 Capacity Building webinar. My name is Jessica Sorrell. I'm a Senior Program Director in Enterprise's Mid-Atlantic Market Office. I'm joined today by my colleague Diane Westcott. Diane is a grant specialist with our Solutions, Operations, and Management team. We wanted to let everyone know that all phone lines will be muted during this webinar. Please submit questions throughout the webinar, though, using the Q&A box, and we will be sure to address all of the questions at the end. So just to go through our agenda for the afternoon, we will walk through the purpose of the webinar. We'll give you an overview of the HUD Section 4 grant program, as well as an overview of the full LOI. We'll discuss the Mid-Atlantic market priorities, and then we'll wrap up by sharing the timeline, important reminders as you consider applying, and then take any questions. So the purpose of today's webinar is to review information on the HUD Section 4 grant program and the LOI application more specifically. We'll give you a full overview of the Mid-Atlantic market LOI priorities, and we'll use this time to answer any questions you may have. For those that may be new to Enterprise, we were founded nearly 35 years ago by this wonderful gentleman from the Mid-Atlantic market, the late Jim Rouse. Today, we are a proven and powerful nonprofit that improves communities and people's lives by making well-designed homes affordable. We do that through nationwide know-how, through our partners, policy leadership, and investment to multiply the impact of local affordable housing development. I will now turn it over to Diane Westcott to give you an overview of the Section 4 Capacity Building Program.
Thanks so much, Jess. So as Jess mentioned, my name is Diane Westcott, and I'm the grant specialist for Enterprise's Mid-Atlantic market area. And I'm happy to say that I've worked with a good amount of you folks in my administrative role, and I just want to say thanks so much for making the time to come to today's session. Some housekeeping stuff we're going to handle first. As Jess mentioned, on Tuesday, we held a national webinar on the Letters of Interest application process for this Section 4 funding opportunity. And during that 1-hour session, we presented information on the LOI components, scoring criteria, and the applicant eligibility and threshold requirements. We also touched upon eligible costs and activities, and we reviewed important dates. The recording and the PDF slide deck are now posted on our Enterprise Grants webpage. So if you were unable to attend the webinar session, I highly recommend that you listen or download the slide deck, especially if you are a new applicant. But we are going to cover a lot in today's session, so no worries. Additionally, we are recording this webinar, and we'll post it on the grants webpage within 1 or 2 business days. And we'll also post this slide deck for this session. And last housekeeping item, like last year, all application information, documents, online resources, the application portal, essentially everything can be found on the grants webpage. And those all-important dates and deadlines are also on page 1 of the LOI, which hopefully many of you folks have read through already. So this federal funding opportunity is available through HUD's Section 4 Capacity Building Program. It's open only to nonprofits, CDCs, and CHODOs to carry out community development and affordable housing activities for the benefit of households of low income, which for the Section 4 program is defined as 80% average median income or below. And a household can be a single person, a group of people living together, or any persons living in a housing unit. So you don't have to necessarily think of it as a family unit. It can be defined by any one of these. Applicants must meet the eligibility requirements, which are described in Appendix A of the LOI. HUD requires that the applicant be a CDC or CHODO, nonprofit organization, and that the proposed activities, programs, projects, however you'd like to refer to what you plan to do, those must directly build the capacity of your nonprofit organization. In addition, Enterprise requires that your organization can demonstrate sufficient staff capacity to carry out your grant activities. HUD recently gave us guidance about the eligibility of membership organizations that are seeking to receive Section 4 grants. They've given Enterprise a much stricter definition of membership groups. So if you fall into this category, please contact the grants team, including myself, through our RFP mailbox address, which is rfp@enterprisecommunity.org. And we'll be able to gather more information and discuss further. The information that we may gather could be some organizational documents, but having this additional information will be good because we'll need to review these on a case-by-case basis. So if any of you, though, are unsure about your organization's eligibility, please email the RFP mailbox. This way we can get more information, request additional documents like bylaws and articles of incorporation, and we can then provide appropriate guidance and make a determination. So please don't be shy about contacting us with eligibility questions or really any questions that arise while you're working on your proposal. We will be quick to respond. It's manned constantly, and in almost all cases, we will respond within the same day, sometimes the same hour. So this Section 4 funding opportunity consists of a 2-stage application process, the letters of interest stage, which we're obviously in right now, and the full proposal stage, which is by invitation only. But overall, the final award notifications are scheduled to be sent out in mid-October, I believe right around October 15th, via email. And then, of course, shortly after that, the grant preparation stage will begin. Applicants must apply under just one of the 5 program areas as outlined in the LOI, and we do realize that proposals may address multiple program areas, but we ask that you just pick the one area that most closely aligns with your proposed activities or project. If your organization has active awards or perhaps has a pending application with other Section 4 intermediaries, and there's only 3 groups, and the other 2 groups are LISC and Habitat for Humanity International, you can still apply to our LOI, but you cannot request funding for the same cost. HUD is very stringent on this. So let's review some important points about the application materials and the overall submission process. This year we are using the cloud-based slide room program to accept all applications. And as you most likely already know, the LOI document can be downloaded through Enterprises Grants webpage. And that's also the way that you can get to the application portal through that yellow Apply Now link. All applicants do need a SlideRoom account, so if you don't already have one, you can register for one really easily. Just see Appendix C of the LOI for instructions on how to go about doing that. Once you've created your SlideRoom account, luckily you'll be able to review all of the questions you'll need to answer. And one great thing about SlideRoom is that it automatically saves the work as it's entered. So you can log in and out as many times as you need to complete the application, which is a great change from programs that we've used in the past. So some more application information. So 72 hours before the deadline, and the deadline being Monday, July 15th, if your organization hasn't already submitted their application, the SlideRoom account owner will receive an email reminder stating this. Within a week of the deadline, so that would be Monday, July 8th, a countdown timer will appear in SlideRoom to help applicants know exactly how much time is left to submit, and that should be very helpful for applicants. We ask you to please carefully review your application before submitting, because once you submit it, changes cannot be made, and unfortunately, we cannot make any exceptions to this policy. There are a good amount of required questions which are clearly marked in the application form. If you have omitted any answers to those, a red link will appear at the top of the screen and take you back to those application questions to answer. After submitting your application, you'll see a confirmation screen with a confirmation ID number and a submission date. A confirmation email will also be sent to the account owner, and we ask that you please keep that for your records. You can also print the submission confirmation, and the application itself is able to be printed directly from SlideRoom. I don't believe it's able to be saved as another file. Like, I don't think you can actually download it as a Word document, but you can print it out. So you'll have that as a reference. So as I noted earlier, all application information, documents, online resources, the application portal, essentially everything can be found on the grants webpage, and here is the link to it. General questions can always be sent to the RFP mailbox. Anticipated awards for the Mid-Atlantic market will most likely range from $25,000 to $50,000. Requests should be reasonable based upon your proposed activities. As we note in the LOI, the range does go up to $100,000, but honestly, this is very rare to have grants awarded at or near that amount. So that said, please keep that in mind when writing your proposal. There are a few new changes for the 2019 funding round. The first one is fairly big. If you're awarded a grant, the period of performance will need to begin on the first of the month following the execution of the grant by both parties, being Enterprise and the grantee. We anticipate grant start dates will range from November through January 2020, so that would be up to February 1st. And so you folks, you'll need to propose activities and costs beginning sometime in that date range. HUD has told us that we are no longer able to backdate grants. So we are to reimburse for costs only after the grant has been fully executed and a legal agreement is in place. Oh, sorry, hold on. I forgot one. Sorry about that. Also new for this round, Applications should be submitted through Slide Room by an authorized representative of your organization. So that's a change also. Consultants may not submit applications on behalf of the applicant. And we also request that the primary and secondary contact people that you'll identify in the application not be consultants. Okay. And now I'm going to pass the presenter ball over to Jessica Sorrell, the Senior Program Director, so she can review the Mid-Atlantic market priorities. So,
thanks,
Jess, you can take it away. You're welcome.
Can you hear me all right? Okay, great. And just as a reminder, as we're continuing to go through the information, I encourage you to include any questions you may have in the Q&A box, and we'll be sure to make time at the end to cover those questions. So for this next section, I want to discuss the geographic and program area priorities for the Mid-Atlantic. I will note at the outset, I'm giving a high-level overview, but a full description of our priorities is included in the NOFA that was released in the section Attachment 6 on page 26. So I encourage you to look over that really closely. Before jumping into the priorities, just given the competitive nature of this RFP round, I wanted to share kind of two general pieces of advice when crafting a successful proposal. One is that all applicants should clearly articulate their capacity building needs and how the impact of this grant will have on their organization. And also, we encourage applicants, regardless of the program area or the geography that you choose, to consider how grant funds can be used to advance racial equity. We have some great resources on the grants page, some toolkits and information around racial equity that I would encourage you to explore as well. So in terms of Mid-Atlantic market priority geography, the market will accept and review applications from the full Mid-Atlantic area, which we define as DC, the entire state of Maryland, and Northern Virginia. And we define Northern Virginia as the cities of Alexandria and Falls Church and the counties of Arlington, Loudoun, Prince William, and Fairfax. We will give priority to applications within the Mid-Atlantic market that focus on the areas of DC, including wards 5, 7, and 8, and activities that relate to impact within a half mile of existing or planned transit stations. In Maryland, we have priority within Baltimore City, particularly the neighborhoods of Southwest Baltimore, Park Heights, and South Baltimore. And within Maryland, we also prioritize the areas of Montgomery and Prince George's counties, and particularly those areas that are near existing or planned Purple Line transit stations. And in Northern Virginia, again, we will accept and review applications within the whole area, but priority is given to applications that are focused on activities within a half mile of existing or planned transit. As it relates to the program areas, for folks who have applied in the past, the program area layout is a little bit different this year. So there are 5 national program areas. And the Mid-Atlantic market will accept and review applications from any of those 5 areas. But we will give priority to applicants that apply in 4 of the 5. And those 4 are Program Area 1, Housing Stability, Program Area 2, Organizational Capacity Building, Program Area 4, Economic Mobility, and Program Area 5, Health and Housing. And again, the full descriptions of these program areas and our priorities can be found in that Attachment 6. But I'm going to walk through each of those 4 to give you a sense of where our priorities fit. So in Program Area 1, with Housing Stability, there were 4 main activities and areas of focus that we wanted to call out as priorities. So one is around increasing the stock of affordable housing and community facilities by partnering with faith-based organizations and houses of worship. We also are interested in proposals that look at activities that have housing stability and community development that support connections to school improvement and neighborhood development. The third is equitable transit-oriented development. So that would be activities that would support affordable housing, development, or preservation in transit-oriented locations. And lastly, in that housing stability bucket, we called out a priority around advancing homeownership projects and homeownership models. So things such as cooperatives, condos, and community land trust structures. In program area 2, organizational capacity building, we are interested in seeing proposals for organizations that feel like this is the best fit for them for activities that result in stronger, more financially viable, and diverse organizations. So that could include activities such as improving accounting systems, leadership development for staff, or supporting recruitment and training to diversify the organization staff. That's just a sense of a few of the types of activities that may relate to that organizational capacity building. For program area 4, economic mobility, we were interested in focusing on activities that expand food access and workforce development opportunities, advance workforce development and job placement for returning citizens, and may include efforts that help to close the wealth gap, particularly the income wealth gap between African Americans and white residents in Baltimore City and Washington, D.C. And finally, in program area 5, health and housing, within that category, we were most interested and would prioritize Mid-Atlantic market applications that relate to initiatives focused on homelessness prevention and alleviation, particularly in Baltimore City, Washington, D.C., and Arlington County, Virginia. And with that, I will turn it back over to Diane to talk through some timeline and reminders.
Thank you, Jeff. I hope everyone can hear me.
I can hear you well.
Yes. Okay. Okay, great. Thanks. I wasn't quite sure about that. So let's review some important dates. The first one being the LOI submission date of Monday, July 15th at 11:59 p.m., so 1 minute before midnight. The application portal will close at midnight, so this is a firm deadline. You will be unfortunately, you will be unfortunately locked out, and we do not want anyone to miss out on an application due to a time constraint. As we mentioned, the second stage of the selection process will be by invitation only. So on Thursday, August 8th, we will notify successful applicants through email of our decision to accept full proposals. Please note that the email will be sent to the primary and secondary contact people that will be identified within your application. Excuse me. And then the submission deadline for the full proposal will be September 9th. So we wanted to give you folks some links to handy resources that can be found on the grants webpage. You'll want to scroll down near the bottom of that page and you'll see this list. At this point, the two most important links are the webpage itself and the LOI FAQ, which will be updated weekly up to about Friday, July 12th, I think is the last date that we'll update it. It's usually updated toward the end of the week. And this document does have, the FAQ does have some great information, so I encourage everyone to take a look at it. Several of these resources listed here are also called out in the LOI. So some reminders for you, quite important. Applicants may only submit one proposal, so please keep that in mind. Applicants must apply under only one of the program areas among the 5 that we have set forth. And also, keep in mind the program priorities that Jess just went through for the Mid-Atlantic market. Enterprise will only consider LOIs from applicants that meet both threshold and the eligibility requirements. They need to submit the application via slide room and submit it by July 15th, 1 minute before midnight. I know here it says that the application will close at 11:59, but technically it'll be midnight because you have that one last minute to get in your application. So that all being said, request to change an application once it's been submitted will be denied. So I'm sorry, we cannot honor request to change an application. So please carefully review your application before submitting it. And late and hard copy applications will not be able to be submitted, and we cannot accept any applications that fall outside of slide room. So that being said, we highly recommend that you plan to submit your application in slide room a day or two before July 15th in case you run into any unanticipated issues. If you happen to run into any unanticipated issues, please email the enterprise, the RFP mailbox, and you just never know because it can be a crazy cyber world out there, and we just want to make sure that everyone can get their application in. Let's see. Oh, okay, and the national webinar that I spoke about earlier that took place on Tuesday, you can now access the recording from the grants webpage, and here's the hyperlink once again. Okay, so questions. What do you do if you have a question? Well, it kind of depends on what the question is about. So ones that are specific to the Mid-Atlantic market should be sent to Jess at the email address shown here. General questions, I know I sound like a broken record, but general questions about the LOI are to be submitted to the RFP mailbox. And as I said, it's monitored by the entire grants team, including myself, and we will get back to you very quickly. Technical questions related to slide room can be sent to the slide room technical support team at the hours and days shown here. Hopefully you will not need to use them, but I've heard that they are very competent and responsive. So if you do have an issue, something won't upload, for example, give them a call. Oh, I'm sorry, an email. Okay, so now we're going to open up the floor for general questions. I see there's some in the boxes already. Some people put their questions in chat, but I think between me and Jessica, we can address those. But again, if we happen to not get to all the questions, you can definitely email the RFP mailbox or Jess, and we can follow up on that. So, Jess, you are unmuted now, I believe.
Great. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what we have. I think one question is from, let's see, I got to scroll up to the top. Bear with me for a moment. Here we go. So Jess, I think this is for you. Regarding the 80% AMI for a project in Baltimore City, is the measure of the AMI in the city, the state of Maryland, or some larger geography?
Sure. We would most likely refer to the regional AMI, so the AMI for the Metropolitan Statistical Area, the MSA. We would use that as the kind of the rule of thumb for that 80% AMI.
Okay. Next question from Mitchell. Our CDC deals with a number of the program area priorities, but is not in a geographic priority area. What is the likelihood of success, i.e., is there a significant scoring deficit?
I would say, and Diane, I welcome your thoughts on this, but my first thought on that is that I do not think it is a significant scoring deficit. I think particularly hitting on, obviously the ideal is that there would be overlap in both geographic and program area priorities, but I would definitely encourage an applicant who fits within those priorities, the program areas, to still, highly encourage them to apply. Hope that answers it. Anything that you would add, Diane?
I would just add that the priority area and the location that the activity is in are important to us, obviously, but also there are a lot of other criteria that we score upon: impact and outcomes and things like that, thoughtfulness of the proposal. So keep that in mind, that we're looking at a lot of different criteria. And in the national webinar, we touched upon, I reviewed all of the scoring criteria and what we're looking for. So you can find that information. It might be in the LOI itself, but it definitely was addressed during during Tuesday's webinar. Okay. Jess, do you have any on the pulled up? I'm trying to scroll and read them.
Sure, I can read the next one if you'd like.
Okay, great.
Sure. The next question was around initiatives focused on homelessness prevention and alleviation. So does Enterprise define that to include eviction prevention in multifamily affordable units? And if so, to what extent should applications focus on healthy activities versus housing stability? So that's a great question. We didn't explicitly call out eviction prevention, as you saw, but I think, we're in a position not to tell an applicant which program area to focus on. So I think in an issue like that, eviction prevention, there's definitely overlap in housing stability and the health and housing, where there's a tie to homelessness. So reviewing both of those and just seeing based on the activities where it may be a better fit. So I wouldn't recommend strongly one category versus the other. Diane, anything that you would differ or change on that?
No, I think that approach, your answer is good.
Okay. And if that doesn't fully answer the question, Nikki, happy to follow up directly by email and talk that through more, and we can reflect as well on that eviction prevention specifically. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's important to note here, and this goes to the whole group, is that we can't give, per HUD, we can't give specific guidance as to how your proposal should be crafted or what is the best approach to go about, achieving those outcomes that you want to achieve. What we can do is we're able to, if you contact us saying, is something eligible, is this an eligible activity or an eligible cost, we can say yes or no. So it needs to be very broad, and we can't really steer. We're not able to steer anyone into helping them to craft their proposal. Okay, Andrea asks, are all of the application program areas equally competitive? Some of my colleagues believe that an application focused on housing stability would be more competitive than one focused on other areas. So the way all the markets score and review these proposals is it really depends on the quality of the proposal. I wouldn't say, no, I'm not on any of the review committees, but I would say, and the way we've always done it in the past, is that all the program areas are equally competitive. We have applications coming into all those areas, and it's just really, it really matters about the strength of the proposal itself. Jess, do you have anything to add?
No, I agree.
Okay.
That was the last question I saw. I'm trying to see if there's any more.
I think there's ones in the chat box. So now I'm trying to pull down the chat box. I know that Tamara, I believe, said that her geographic area is Texas. So Tamara, if you haven't had a chance to look at Tuesday's webinar, that explains in a nutshell the national initiatives, market priorities over the market priority areas. So if you're in the Texas geography, I believe you would apply under the national initiatives area, and then you will choose one of the 5 programs that are listed in that area. But you will not obviously be able to apply under Mid-Atlantic, so sorry about that. Okay, I'm scrolling down the chat, and I think, let's see, current grantees. Okay, hello. May current awardees apply for funds to continue projects and programs that are currently being funded by Enterprise Section 4, or does it need to have an entirely different scope of work? So this is an entirely different funding round, but it can address work that you are already doing for a current enterprise grant, and your desire in your proposal to continue that work. It needs to be clearly delineated where your current grant will end and where your next one will begin, and the costs cannot, overlap. For instance, a lot of applications, the budgets deal with covering salaries. That's a eligible costs to be covered. So the executive director or someone will be listed as a budget line item for salary. It needs to be very cut and dry where those costs will be covered, where they'll end, and then where they'll begin for the next one. Okay. Do you see any more, Jeff?
I don't, and I saw the question in chat, which I think we addressed, and I don't see any further questions in the Q&A box.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, unless you see any others. But again,
no, I think we're good. I think we're good.
Yeah. Wonderful. And I just wanted to, just as we close out, just thank everyone for their time, for their interest. And again, if you have any additional questions after wrapping up the webinar, oh, it looks like we may have just gotten one question. There was one more question around it. Is it safe to say that the earliest you will execute an agreement is January 2020? Does that sound right to you, Diane?
No, the earliest we would be executing an agreement would be November 1st, and that would be if we turn it around really, really fast. So I know that it's difficult to zone in your proposal on when it would start, when we're giving you a range of when we think the grant would start. So I don't know, I would probably say somewhere around December 1st would be a safe, that would be like a safe bet. This is a new directive that's just recently come to us from HUD. So to be honest, we're kind of, grappling with the idea of how, logistically are we going to, how are we going to do this? But just think of it in terms of maybe around December, having that start date, and we'll go from there.
Great. Well, if anyone has any additional questions, please don't hesitate to contact me or the RFP box, and we look forward to getting back to you quickly and look forward to receiving applications. So thanks so much for your time, and we look forward to talking with you soon.
Thanks so very much, everyone.